You are now listening to Dear Dope Chick, a weekly podcast created to inspire and energize women to live life on their own terms. I'm your host, Felicia, and here is today's dose of dope. Dear Dope Chick, welcome and welcome back. How are you feeling today? How are you living today? Are you ready today to take some action? For those of you who are new here, who haven't been here in quite a while, or have been rocking with me since day one, Dear Dope Chick is an action-based podcast. So what does that mean? That means that every single episode, you are challenged to take one step that aligns with living life on your own terms. That means you're taking one step today. However you want to label it as, big step, little step, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You're taking a step that aligns with the lifestyle that you most desire. Put yourself out there, fam. Put yourself out there. Don't be afraid of looking a certain way to anyone because you want different for yourself. You are worth the investment. You are worth your time. You are worth your energy. You are worth your focus. Do you believe that though? That's where we start. We start with your belief. We start with tweaking the mindset to accept the challenge of moving forward, the challenge of persevering, the challenge of pressing on when you are faced with adversity. Are you willing to put yourself on the other side of that challenge by going through what you need to complete in order to get to where you want to go? You owe it to yourself to steer your life in the direction that you've always wanted to go. And you can do that for yourself today. I'm here as a beacon of encouragement, but know that everything, whatever happens today, is because of you. So I want to go ahead and get into today's action step. Today's action is to expand your perspective. Why would we even want to do this in the first place? Why not just keep thinking how we've been thinking? Well, that's a good question. With infinite possibilities and opportunities in life, you, me, whomever else, we're only privy to a limited amount in this moment. We cannot touch every single thing. We don't have the wherewithal to do it. We have a limited perspective no matter how expansive we believe ourselves to be because of how we've been raised, because of our lived experiences, because of how society has formed our way of thinking, our collective biases. They've rubbed off on us. We all have different ways of thinking because of what we've been exposed to. So the way to expand your perspective is to expand your exposure, to broaden your exposure, to expand your horizons. We've all been influenced in some way, shape, or form growing up, and that influence has played a pivotal role in how we interact with life. So it's important now that we bridge the gap. Some folks are very optimistic while other folks see a different side of the coin, and that doesn't make any one of us right or wrong. It just makes us different. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we bring those two perspectives together? By expanding our perspectives, we are able to bridge that gap between both viewpoints and in turn build a connection. So, what are some of the ways in which we can expand our perspectives? Factors that control how far we expand our perspective include how much time we're willing to invest and how much focus or energy we're willing to put into understanding a certain situation or topic. Considering you have the time and the focus locked and loaded right now, here are some of the suggestions that I have that can help you expand your perspective. And this is not an all inclusive list. Obviously, it's only a few suggestions here to get you started. So, one of the suggestions is to realize two things can be true at once. The sky can be blue and rain can fall from the sky at the same exact time. I've seen rainbows during rainfall. So if there can be rainbows during rainfall, then two things can be true at one time. Our intentions can be pure, and the impact of what we've done can still cause harm. Two things can be true at once. Accepting that is the first step to broadening your horizons, to expanding your perspective. Another way that we can expand our perspective is by recognizing what's working in our life right now. An alternate phrase for this would be to see the good in life. But because I am distancing myself from the binary thinking of good and bad, I'm offering a different perspective on see the good with quote unquote recognizing what's working. That's a little, expansion right there, because introducing new phrases to people, seeing a different way of thinking about it, that's broadening your horizons, that's expanding your perspective. And one of the reasons that I want to stay away from the good and the bad is because we are programmed already to see good and bad as literally a good thing and a bad thing. Like, you put a label on it and you want to avoid one thing and you want to have more of the other thing. And remember what we said, two things can be true at one time. What we consider to be good can also be bad. What we consider to be bad can also be good. So it's more about finding a balance rather than labeling one thing as the one thing, like good or bad. It's about the balance of them. This leads into the next point, which is to acknowledge our deficiencies. We don't want to acknowledge our deficiencies if we think that they are bad things that are not widely accepted. And we struggle with seeing the flip side of life a lot of the times because it's not a side we tend to embrace. By focusing on what is working, we can continue on in that direction. On the flip side, when we recognize what is not working, we can acknowledge where we need help and or where we can expand our knowledge base. It is a step in the direction that you want to go. We can use this information as a starting point for change. When we want different, then we've got to do something different to get it. And by acknowledging where we need to start, that can be the starting point of different. That is the new path. That is the start of a new journey. Expanding our perspectives can look like accepting the unbelievable. Have you ever received news about something happening that sounds unfathomable, yet it happened? Your mind doesn't want to accept that it happened, so it's not really quite ready to accept it. So denial and shock kick in. Shit, your jaw may drop on the floor and you're just left in awe. The unbelievable can look like miracles. The unbelievable can look like tragedy. It can look like nature and supernatural events and phenomenons. Whatever you think is unbelievable, it can be placed into that category. Our lack of acceptance doesn't make it untrue. So, accepting that these things can happen and that they do happen, and accepting life for what it is. that's another way to expand our perspectives, because now we're not limited in thinking, oh, only this can happen. And also, it's not a, I have to see it in order to believe it. I don't believe that. That never happened. Nah. Just because you haven't seen it does not mean that it doesn't happen. Just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean that that's not happening. Accept the unbelievable. Over the course of the week, continue to implement different ways to expand your perspective. How can you put the above concepts into practice? How can we start realizing two things are true at once? How can we recognize what's working in our lives? How can we start accepting the unbelievable? What are ways we can accept those concepts and explore those concepts even further? Everything sounds achievable until it's time to put it into practice. And then that's when we're confused on where to start. So let's explore actionable steps we can take starting today that align with some of the abstract approaches of expanding our perspectives. So one of the things that we can do today is to read more. Over the course of the week, we can continue to implement this. We can read different medias and mediums that will expand our way of thinking. Expanding your reading list to include titles that you wouldn't normally pick up. That's a way to expand your perspective. It doesn't have to be anything extreme. Rather, focus on broadening your perspective about a particular topic. And you can start small. For example, those of us who are familiar with Western medicine can expand our perspectives by reading about holistic medicine or Eastern practices. Everything that we know about healing the body is not everything to know about healing the body. The body heals in many different ways. And so the limited perspective that we have about healing the body can, in some cases, cause more harm than good, because now we're not open up to ways that we can heal ourselves. So why not explore a different perspective? Why not see other ways in which we can deal with some of the issues and ailments that we have, some of the diseases that we have? A good way to start is to read more and be open to it. You can't just read it and just say, okay, I read it. Be open to the information. Accept that two things can be true at one time. Accept the unbelievable. Another way you can start expanding your perspective today is to listen more. Ask someone about themselves or about their experience and genuinely listen without interruption. Commit to listening more than talking. Whether or not you believe in or agree with what is stating, that doesn't matter. Two things can be true at once. Likewise, there are a million perspectives, and then there is the unbiased truth. Focus on uncovering that truth. And uncovering that truth helps build connections. But the only way to really build those connections is to consider different perspectives. Another way we can expand our perspective is to travel more. Now, I'm not asking you to get on a plane or on a boat or on a train today, tomorrow, during the week. I'm not asking you to just drop everything and take a flight or to apply for your passport right now. The type of traveling that you can do today is visiting the other side of town. Taking your time to visit the other side of town and experience what that side of town has to offer. Browse the stores, enjoy the food spots, engage in the community events. Anything that provides a different perspective, you can do that. It doesn't have to be, you traveling to a whole nother state. You can, and that also lends different perspectives because you see life differently from you. But going to another neighborhood and engaging in the community events in that neighborhood, that also offers a different perspective. Even going to a different library in your town can offer a different perspective because you go into that library and you see some of the books that may be on that side of town are not on this side of town. I'm noticing something here. There's a discrepancy. This side has more than this side. How can we make sure that we all have equal access? And then, going to the library itself, we talked about reading more. You go in there, grab you a book, get you something new. Maybe you notice that this library has a lot of this particular type of genre. Wonder why this is so popular over here. Let me pick up a book and see what it's about. Expanding your perspective. Other ways that you can expand your perspective. You can ask questions. You can learn a new skill. You can take a class. There are so many ways to do this. Don't limit yourself to one way of learning. Whatever the moment presents as an opportunity right now, test it out. So my final thoughts are this. Some things aren't worth your time. Let's be real here and state for the record that your time and energy are precious and are reserved for what you feel is important in your life. If getting to know someone and connecting with them on a deeper level is important to you, you take time to learn more about them and to build that connection. You'll do that. If having the opportunity to utilize a specific skill is important to you, you will take the time to learn it and you will practice executing it just to make sure that you know how to do it. You will do that on your own. Whatever we claim is important to us, if we're not taking time for it, then it's not as important as our lip service wants to convince us that it is. Don't talk about it, be about it. You say you want something. What actions are you taking to not only get it, but to sustain it? You say you want connection. Well, what are you doing to connect with that person or those people? You say you want to learn a specific skill. What are you doing to learn that skill? In what ways are you putting what you've learned into practice? Whatever you choose to do it with an open mind and let curiosity lead. Commit to learning something new every single day. You are worth that investment. Before you say, oh my gosh, I don't have time for that, you are worth the investment. Why not invest in yourself? In all that you do it with love. True connection with others and with the world around us comes from a genuine place. It really does. When you really truly want to connect with someone, it comes from a genuine place. You aren't using the information that you gain to weaponize them or to further oppress them. You are using what you learn as an act of liberation and freedom. You are using your curiosity as an act of liberation and freedom. Taking the time to expand our perspectives is a way of freeing our minds to operate in a non-judgmental way. And by calling on others to lend their perspectives, we are providing a space for all of us to be our most authentic selves. And that's liberation right there. That's freedom. Freedom to be you, regardless of what's going on. That's something that many of us have not been able to experience in our life. That's the beauty of expansion. Decide today how far you are willing to stretch yourself. How far are you willing to expand? Abundance has no bounds. No bounds. Do you? As always, I thank you for showing up today. I thank you for being here, for listening, for learning, for taking it in, for implementing new steps, for expanding your perspective. And most importantly, I thank you for being you. I'll see you in the next episode. For more dope messages, be sure to visit adailydoseofdope.com and become a member. Also, cop your dope merch at deardopechick.com and follow us on all of our social media at Dear Dope Chick, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, be you, be dope. Love, P.